At sunrise, the Iron Crown army reaches the mouth of the verdant scar and stops. They came expecting bones, ash, and one forgotten corpse. Instead, they find a fortress carved into the valley wall. Thorn logs rise 3 stories high. Embers tone lamps glow under wet moss. Monster shadows stand across every ridge. His name is Kael. The guild once called him inventory weight. Along the wall, glassback raptors patrol in pairs. Then one raptor lowers its head beside a child inside the gate. The boy feeds it smoked fish with both hands. The beast takes the food gently. That sight hits harder than any war horn. Iron Crown built its fortune by chaining monsters, cutting cores from their bodies, and selling safe roads through dead lands. But behind Kael's wall, workers carry fruit beside horned giants. A healer tent breathes golden mist. A water wheel turns under a shell-backed monster that should have been a siege target. Here, it is a citizen. Then Varric Dane rides to the front beneath the black Iron Crown banner. He is the guild heir, the man who signed the route claims, and the man who marched back to take what he thought belonged to him. His eyes climb the wall, past the raptors, past the towers, and lock on Kael's face. For the first time, Varric has no command ready. He whispers, he should be dead. Kael stands still. One side of his face carries an amber scar from his damaged ear down to his palm. Vein light pulses under his skin in time with the beasts around him. Every pulse moves through the fortress. Raptor tails lower. Thornhide tricers brace behind the gate. Emberwing gliders unfold above the towers. Under the road, something huge grinds stone between basalt teeth. The guild standard-bearer sees the ground shift and loses his nerve. The Iron Crown banner drops into the mud before the battle even starts. No one laughs. Behind Kael, the larger inner gate groans open. Bone Crown steps into the light. The apex tyrant is taller than the wall. Ancient bone plates rise from its skull like a crown grown from war. Broken iron harpoons still hang from scars in its neck, trophies from hunters who failed to kill it. Its shadow covers Kael completely. Kael does not move aside. Varric's war beasts smell Bone Crown and break. Chained tuskers back into supply carts. Armored hounds flatten against the road. Handlers shout, whip, and pull, but fear moves faster than orders. Kael lowers his scarred hand. The whole fortress answers. Not with a roar. Not at first. A tremor passes through the walls, towers, pens, trenches, humans, and beasts. It moves like one heartbeat shared by hundreds of bodies. This is the power the old ruins called Kingdom Heart. Not a chain. Not control. A pact. For a few minutes, every willing beast and every person defending this home can move as one. This is the moment the beasts bonded under his scars stop being separate rescues and become one kingdom. Blood runs from Kael's nose. Inside the gate, Mira Solon leans on a carved crutch and reaches for him. Then she stops. She knows what he chose. She watched this place grow from a cold fire pit and one dying raptor. She knows the cost of every wall, every water line, every ember lamp, and every glowing scar. Varric raises his sword. No soldier follows. The enemy losses are already written in the mud: broken carts, shattered chains, routed hounds, and a commander with no army brave enough to move. Kael looks past the blade, past the armor, past the army that abandoned him. He speaks with the calm of a man standing inside the proof of his survival. This valley is not a graveyard anymore. It is verdant hold. And the question is no longer whether the weakest scholar can survive a prehistoric world. The question is how one abandoned F-rank wound listener built a monster kingdom from nothing. Before Kael has a wall, a throne, or a monster army, he enters the verdant scar as the weakest man in the Iron Crown expedition. He is not a king yet. He is a pack mule in human form, stumbling behind polished soldiers with rope burns on his hands, a map case on his back, and a broken knife tied to his belt. The guild sees baggage. The valley sees the first human in years who is actually listening. At dawn, the Iron Crown Guild marches into the mountain pass. Varric Dane rides near the front on a plated trail beast, smiling like the valley already belongs to him. Behind him, Kael walks on foot under 3 heavy packs. Steam seeps from red stones in the walls. Every step takes them closer to the verdant scar, a sealed prehistoric valley most people call a monster graveyard. The fighters joke about beast cores and Ember's tone prophets. Kael stays quiet. Varric turns in the saddle and throws another rope coil at him. It hits Kael in the chest and almost drops him to one knee. Varric says inventory weight should at least carry inventory. Kael says nothing. If he talks back, Varric might take his father's journal. The fighters show C-rank blades, B-rank guards, and 1 A-rank beast breaker. Then Kael's slate flickers weakly. One soldier asks if Kael plans to apologize monsters to death. Varric lets the shame hang there, then says maybe their scholar can write a sad poem if something dies loudly enough. Kael's damaged ear twitches, but his eyes stay on the trail. It was limping, leaning against the wall, and moving scared. Kael warns them that the trail ahead bends into a hunting funnel. The beast is wounded, cornered, and close. Varric glances at the scratches, then raises his hand like the warning came from him. A striped cliff predator bursts from the brush exactly where Kael said it would. The beast vanishes into the steam, dragging dark blood across the stone. The soldiers cheer Varric's quick command. Varric accepts the praise, then tells Kael even broken tools can make noise before they snap. Kael gets no credit. Kael saw pain, direction, fear, and timing. The guild ignores them and stares at Ember's tone veins glowing in the cliff cracks. Kael slows beside a fallen marker and wipes moss away with his sleeve. Kael opens the book with shaking fingers. The page holds beast sketches, faded notes, and 1 underlined sentence. For the first time, Kael looks less like a servant and more like a man standing at the edge of proof. Now the same mark waits inside the Forbidden Valley, carved into stone older than the guild itself. Varric notices. He rides closer and asks what Kael found. Kael shuts the journal too fast, but not fast enough. Varric sees the symbol. He sees Kael guarding the book. Then he hides it with cruelty. Varric snatches the marker tag from Kael's belt and throws it against the ruined stone. The cracked tag breaks in half. He tells Kael to stop worshipping dead men and start marking useful routes. The soldiers laugh, but Varric's eyes stay on the journal. He is not just bullying Kael now. He is measuring a threat. The expedition moves on, and Kael is forced back into line. Yet the valley keeps speaking. Scratches on bark. Fever heat in shed scales. Low warning calls from unseen beasts. Every detail tells him the verdant scar is not a graveyard. It is wounded territory. Varric steals every correct warning. Kael spots unstable stone, and Varric orders the column to spread. Kael identifies bitter spores near a stream, and Varric declares the water unsafe. Kael reads nesting glider marks, and Varric claims the guild maps predicted the ledge. By sunset, the hierarchy is clear. Kael keeps the expedition alive, but the guild records only Varric's success. The fighters see a ragged scholar with an F-rank slate. Varric sees the son of a man whose notes could threaten Iron Crown's monopoly. And Kael sees a valley full of wounds no blade can understand. When the pass opens over a green abyss, distant roars rise from below. Huge shapes move under the canopy. Ember's tone glows like fire beneath the roots. Kael clutches his father's journal, and the amber mark on his status slate flickers again. Wound listener. The guild laughs at the name. But if Kael can read this world better than soldiers, why is Varric so desperate to silence him? At the cliff gate, the expedition stops above a crater so wide the far wall disappears behind green mist. Below them, the verdant scar breathes like a buried world. Giant ferns choke the slopes. Ember's tone veins glow under the soil. Something huge shifts beneath the canopy, and every soldier goes silent. Varric Dane sees only profit. He orders the guild guards to drive iron stakes into the stone and throw a rope bridge across the broken span. Beast marks cover the stone, mixed with old human handprints and the same symbols from Kael Voran's father's journal. Kael kneels near the edge and studies the carving with shaking hands. The Iron Crown soldiers raise crossbows. Varric does not retreat. He grabs Kael by the collar, shoves the journal into his chest, and tells him to cross first. Kael freezes at the rope bridge. The drop falls into fog and bone-white trees. Varric leans close and reminds him that dead weight can still be useful. If Kael reads the seal, the guild gets the route. So Kael crosses. Kael reaches the far ledge and presses his palm to the carved handprint. Hidden gears grind beneath the cliff face, and a narrow path opens behind the wall. For 1 second, Kael thinks he has earned his place. Varric stands on the opposite ledge with a blade in his hand. The guild soldiers hold the predators back. Mira Solon, trapped with the rear survey team, shouts from behind the line, but battle swallows her voice. Varric smiles like the whole expedition has finally become simple. Kael grabs the handrail, but the planks whip under him. The journal slips from his grip and slams against the cliff below Varric's boots. Kael reaches for it. Varric steps on the cover. Kael falls. The cliff wall blurs past in streaks of gray stone and green vines. For one terrible breath, he sees the whole verdant scar beneath him. Beasts move like living hills under the canopy. Kael tumbles through skulls bigger than wagons and lands in a hollow between two fossilized jaws. Above him, the cliff gate is only a thin scar of daylight. Then Varric's voice carries just far enough to make the betrayal complete. Kael Voran died during the predator attack. The route was secured by Iron Crown Command. The journal is recovered as guild property. Kael tries to yell, but only blood comes up. His water flask is crushed somewhere in the bones. With numb fingers, he searches his belt and finds one thing still tied there. A broken knife. The blade is snapped halfway down, rusted near the handle, and too small to frighten anything here. But it is metal. It can cut vines. It can scrape bark. It can make sparks if he finds the right stone. That broken knife becomes his first tool. The sun drops behind the crater rim. The verdant scar changes after dark. The green mist turns black. Ember's tone veins pulse through the ground like coals under skin. Insects scream from every direction. Heavy shapes move between the trees. The bones around Kael shift as small scavengers crawl through them. Then the calls begin. They are not just roars. Kael hears the difference. One cry has a cracked rhythm, like a lung filling with fluid. Another trembles with hunger. Another repeats the same sharp note again and again, the sound of an animal caught in wire or thorn. His damaged ear burns. Amber light crawls under his skin from his ear toward his jaw. Kael clamps both hands over his head, but the valley does not go silent. The monsters are everywhere. Somewhere in the dark, a beast screams from a broken leg. Another snarls around a poisoned wound. Farther away, something massive bellows with grief so deep it shakes dust from the bone pile. Kael has spent his life being mocked for hearing wounds instead of casting spells. Now the whole crater is a choir of suffering, and every voice points toward him. On the cliff above, humans count prophet and call him dead. Below, the monsters call because they are still alive. Kael crawls under a curved rib and grips the broken knife until his palm bleeds. He has no food, no fire, no map, and no one coming to rescue him. The expedition is over. The survival story begins. This is the moment the verdant scar names him properly. Abandoned in the verdant scar. And as glowing eyes open one by one in the jungle night, the real question lands harder than the fall. What is worse in this valley, the monsters in the dark, or the humans who profit from their wounds? Before Kael builds walls, patrol rings, or a monster kingdom, it starts with one bleeding creature in the mud. No throne. No army. No banner. Just a broken scholar, a rusted trap chain, and a crystal-spined raptor that should have torn him apart. This is the first proof that Kael's useless F-rank skill is not a joke. Kael crawls through the lower valley with one working ear, cracked ribs, and a knife too dull to scare anything bigger than a rat. Varric Dane and Iron Crown have already left him for dead. His water skin is almost empty. Kael freezes under the hanging roots. Kael parts the ferns and sees the trap. An Iron Crown jaw clamp sits half buried in the mud, its chain bolted to a stone spike. Inside the clamp, a glassback raptor twists against the teeth. It is lean, taller than Kael at the shoulder, with translucent crystal plates rising along its spine like broken window glass. Its left hind leg is locked in iron. The raptor snaps at him before he can breathe. Kael falls back as its jaws cut the air inches from his face. The raptor screams. To Kael, the scream breaks into patterns. Pressure on bone. Kael grips his knife and almost runs. Then two scavenger beasts slide between the trees. The raptor sees them too. It stops snapping at Kael and turns its warning growl toward the predators. Kael understands the first truth of the valley. The raptor is not attacking because it hates him. It attacks because every living thing near the trap is either a threat or food. Kael raises both hands and steps where it can see him. Not Iron Crown. The raptor growls harder. So Kael looks at the wound instead of the teeth. Barbed iron hooks pin the leg from both sides. The chain carries the Iron Crown mark. This is how Varric's guild harvests rare beasts. Kael crawls closer. The raptor strikes. Kael bites down on a cry, but he does not swing the knife. The raptor stares at him, confused by the missing counterattack. Kael hears the rhythm again. Water. The raptor snaps again, weaker this time. Kael uses that second to wedge his knife into the release pin. Kael throws a stone and clips the first beast's shoulder. The raptor lunges at both predators with everything it has left, and the chain snaps tight. Kael stops thinking like a scholar. The raptor shrieks. The sound punches through Kael's damaged ear and burns white-hot behind his eyes. Kael gasps. The pain is not only the raptor's anymore. Phantom iron teeth crush his own leg. Kael jams the knife under the pin and slams a rock against the handle. Kael shoves his bleeding palm into the gap and forces the iron teeth apart. The raptor jerks free and collapses on him. For 1 second, Kael is pinned under warm scales, crystal plates, and killing breath. The raptor's jaws hover beside his face. A matching ember scar appears along the raptor's injured leg, thin as a burning thread. Kael's hearing drops into a dull underwater thud. But through the pain, he feels the imprint settle. The raptor pulls back from his throat. Kael whispers one word, not as an order, but as a need. The raptor trembles. Then it turns away from Kael and faces the scavengers. Instead, the glassback raptor rises on 3 legs and lets out a cracked, furious growl. Kael raises his blood-marked palm without knowing why. The ember scar on the raptor flashes once. The raptor lunges. Kael swings the broken trap chain into the brush, making noise, making himself look larger than he is. Together, wounded man and wounded beast force the predators into retreat. Only then does the raptor look back. Kael expects gratitude. The raptor bares its teeth, warning him not to come closer. Then it limps to the fallen water skin and sniffs it. Kael opens the skin and pours the last of his water into a stone hollow. The raptor drinks first. Kael watches every drop vanish. The raptor finishes, lifts its head, and studies him with cold, clever eyes. Kael follows at a distance. The raptor stops twice to growl back. Each time, Kael stops too. At the edge of the clearing, the raptor steps into red light. The ember scar on its leg pulses in time with the amber mark fading on Kael's palm. Rook. A survivor that chose, for now, not to kill him. Rook turns toward a narrow trail of wet stone hidden under moss. Kael realizes the raptor is leading him somewhere. Maybe to water. Maybe to the next test. Kael wipes blood from his nose and follows. Behind him, the Iron Crown trap sits open in the mud, useless for the first time. Ahead, one wounded beast cuts a path through the prehistoric valley. And if one dying raptor can save him, what happens when the whole valley is wounded? By sunrise, Kael Voran has one wounded raptor, one injured ally, one weak fire, and almost no water. The stone shelf is not a kingdom. It is a place where 2 people can die slower than they would in the open. Kael learns the first rule fast. Before walls, before banners, survival starts with water. Mira Solon wakes with fever on her skin and dust on her tongue. Kael tips their last water skin and gets only a few warm drops. Then Rook pads in from the trees and drops a dark green clump at his feet. Kael expects meat or bone. Instead, the glassback raptor brought moss. Rook turns toward the brush, then looks back like he is giving an order. He did not hunt food. He hunted water. Kael presses the moss to Myra's lips. When she sees Rook waiting, she whispers that monsters do not bring gifts. Kael says this one does when the pack needs to live. He takes his broken knife, a strip of cloth, and a burned stick from the fire. Rook leads him through thorn brush, steaming ferns, and tight stone cuts. Then Kael's damaged ear catches a strange pulse. Rook stops beside a dead gray slab where one wet line of moss grows. Kael presses his palm to the stone. Amber light crawls from his bad ear to his wrist, and he hears water moving below. Kael follows the wet crack to a cave hidden behind roots. Blue light glows on slick stone walls. At the center lies a huge armored river beast, as big as a wagon, with mineral ridges across its shell. Water seeps around it, but the stream cannot run free. Mira once warned him that some beasts guard water until every rival dies. A rusted gilt spear is buried under the edge of its shell, grinding deeper with every movement. The beast rumbles. Rook lowers his head, ready to attack. Kael tells him to hold. Through the wound imprint, he hears hunger, thirst, infection, and fear. Kael cuts his palm and lets blood drip on the spear shaft. The beast's pain slams into his skull. Rook bites the shaft and digs his claws into the mud. Kael wraps both hands around the spear and pulls. Blood runs from Kael's nose. On the third pull, man and raptor tear the spear free with a wet crack. Kael falls into the channel. The old beast roars, and its tail rises over him like a falling gate. The beast sees the spear on the ground. It sees Kael shaking in the water. Kael gives no order. A matching ember scar opens across the blue shell. The beast lowers its crown to the water, and the pact takes hold. Cold, clean water bursts through the cave and knocks Kael flat. Rook leaps after the foam like a hatchling. Kael laughs once, then coughs blood into his sleeve. His hearing is gone on one side again, but the payoff is clear. The cave is no longer a grave. It is a source. The valley has given them their first engine. When Kael returns, Mira is guarding the fire with a sharpened branch. Then she hears running water. A thin stream spills past the stone shelf and cuts a bright line through the dirt. Rook trots beside it, soaked and proud. Behind him, the old river beast emerges with its blue shell glowing. Kael drinks, fills the water skin, and washes blood from his palm. Everything changes at once. The fire can stay. Wounds can be cleaned. Moss can be soaked. Meat can be boiled instead of burned. Their water counter moves from a few drops to a steady stream. Kael names the old beast Mournshell, because its pain sounded like a river crying under stone. Mournshell does not bow. It lowers its heavy tail into the stream and guides the flow away from the sleeping ground. That afternoon, Kael draws their first map on flat bark. Stone shelf. Fire pit. Rook's watch path. Myra's bed. Cave spring. Water trench. By dusk, clean water runs within reach of the fire. Food can keep them alive for a day, but water can build something that lasts. By the next sunrise, Kael Voren is no longer only trying not to die. The camp has clean water, a better fire pit, and Rook standing guard like a blade with legs. It is still fragile, but Kael has learned the next rule of the monster kingdom. Beasts can do more than fight. Before dawn, Rook circles the camp, then clicks from the tree line. Kael follows with a sharpened stick, fever behind his eyes and his damaged ear still ringing. Her name is Mira Solin, a surveyor from an expedition that never came home. Kael cuts her loose while Rook watches the trees. Mira flinches every time the raptor moves, but Rook only drops a dead fern lizard near her feet like payment. She sees the amber scar glowing along Rook's spine and understands the truth. Kael is not controlling a chained monster. They carry Mira back in slow stages. Kael expects thanks. Mira gives him a work list. Kael digs it deeper and rings it with flat stones, so the smoke crawls toward a crack in the cliff. Rook pulls vines loose. Kael ties them badly. Mira unties them and shows him the right knots. Myra's splinted leg rests on a raised mat. Rook curls outside the entrance. The camp now has a front, a back, a water place, and a tool place. Then black smoke rises beyond the fern wall. Rook screams and bolts toward it. Kael follows because he hears a pain pattern so heavy it shakes his teeth. Mira shouts for Kael to run. A beast that size does not need to hate them to kill them. But the wound imprint answers need, and this beast does not need a master. Kael rushes in with wet hides from Myra's pack. Rook darts around the tricer's head to pull its attention. Mira hooks burning vines with the metal edge of her compass frame. Kael's hands blister as he smothers the fire. Kael cuts the last vine. An ember scar opens beneath the burn, matching Kael's palm. Mira stares from the ground. Rook lowers his head in warning. This new beast is bigger than their whole camp. Kael names it Bramblejaw. They give it water first and pack mud over its burns. Bramblejaw grunts like it hates being helped, but it stays. The next morning, Mira draws a crescent around the stone shelf. A crescent wall bends force away from the sleeping area and funnels attackers toward firelight. Kael puts his hand on Bramblejaw's thorn plate and sends one intent. Bramblejaw lowers his horns into a fallen log and drives forward. Rook scouts the sides. Kael staggers as shared strain hits his shoulders, and his nose bleeds after the third push. Still, the log lands exactly where Mira marked it. Now timber ribs curve around it like the bones of a future fortress. That evening, Rook finds a silk spine weaver under river roots with two young pressed beneath its feathered body. Its silk spines are torn, and one leg is trapped under a branch. Mira goes pale, because every instinct says to burn something that looks half spider and half feathered dinosaur. Kael hears fear first. Not hunger. Fear for the young. He lifts the branch off the mother's leg and backs away. Mira tosses clean moss near the wound. Rook guards the brush. Kael sends the knee back through the bond. Protect them. Safe dark. No fire. The weaver accepts. Mira names it Loom, because it spins silk between two posts. The strand shines like silver wire and is stronger than rope. Now the camp upgrades again. Bramblejaw pushes logs into place. Loom wraps them with silk cords that harden as they dry. Mira draws gates, drainage cuts, and a small pen where wounded beasts can rest. Rook patrols outside the crescent. For the first time, Kael feels the bonds overlap. Rook's alertness. Bramblejaw's pressure. Loom's careful pull. He cannot command like a tyrant. He has to breathe with them and give simple work. Guard. Push. Bind. Rest. That is the first labor chorus. By nightfall, the shelter becomes a palisade with a silk rope gate, a moss-lined beast pen, and the first watch platform. Mira looks up and says the word that changes the story. Not camp. Hold. When night predators call, none rush in. They circle the new wall and keep their distance. The verdant scar now has a defended place with labor, rules, gates, and guards. And if wounded monsters can build a wall, the next question is bigger. Can they build a country? By the time the next smoke column rises, Kael Voran is no longer hiding under a rock shelf. He has guarded fire, clean water, drying meat, a thorn fence pushed by Bramblejaw, and raptor tracks circling the camp like a warning. What began with one dying beast now looks like the first outline of a monster kingdom. Mira Solon sees the smoke first. It rises beyond the sunfruit grove, thin and broken, like a fire kept alive by people too weak to feed it. Kael climbs the watch stone with Rook beside him. They are porters from the Iron Crown expedition, the workers who carried crates, maps, and cooking gear while Varric Dane took the glory. One lifts a broken spear at the glassback raptor, but his hands shake so badly the point dips toward the dirt. Behind Rook, two smaller raptors pace along the thorn fence. Kael walks between the raptors and the refugees with both palms open. Blood crusts his wrist from the last imprint, and amber light flickers near his wounded ear. Kael Voren. The F-rank scholar Varric reported dead. Now he stands at a monster-guarded gate with food above him and beasts waiting for his signal. Mira limps forward with water, but Kael stops the group before they enter. He sees the iron chain hanging from one porter's belt. His voice stays calm, but every beast near the fence goes still. Kael sets the first law of the hold. No chains inside the wall. No trophy kills inside the wall. No beast gets hunted for pride, and no human gets thrown out for being weak. Anyone who cannot accept that can take water and leave before dark. To Iron Crown, monsters are materials. Hide, bone, core, fang, route marker, warning sign. Kael has built the opposite. Here, a raptor can guard a child. A tricer can push walls instead of breaking them. A wounded beast is not property waiting for a brand. Rook lowers his head and steps aside. The 5 survivors enter under monster guard, not as prisoners, but as people accepted into a living pact. Mira counts 7 humans now, including herself and Kael. Beside it, she marks 3 bonded raptors, Bramblejaw, Mornshell, and the scouting beasts around the fence. It is not a kingdom yet, but it has a census, rules, and people who will wake up because safety is not for sale. By morning, the hold gains a raised food rack, a clay-lined kiln for smoking meat, and 2 signal poles tied with torn guild banners. Water is steady. Food is no longer one meal at a time. Beasts have resting areas. Skiv, the Emberwing glider, steals a brass buckle from a porter's boot and drops it on top of a signal pole like a crown. Rook pretends not to care, but he moves closer to the gate whenever the sick child coughs. Mira boils water and crushes herbs, but her face tightens. Then Kael hears a sound beyond the fence. He follows it with Rook and finds a deer-like beast trapped in old Iron Crown wire. Its crown frill glows pale gold, but the light pulses weakly. Iron Crown would cut it apart and bottle the glow. Kael kneels instead. The beast jerks away, terrified. Forced control would break it, so Kael does not command. He cuts the wire, pours clean water into a leaf bowl, and presses his bleeding palm to the torn skin as the wound imprint opens. For one moment, he feels the beast's fear of knives, cages, and hands that only take. Nobody speaks as it lowers its glowing crown over the fever child. Mira watches the fever break in real time. The monster Iron Crown would carve into medicine becomes the camp doctor. A raptor guards the door. Bramblejaw blocks the open side with his horned body. That morning, the porters stopped calling it Kael's camp. One points to the green walls, the smoke kiln, the healer tent, the signal poles, the water trench, and the beasts patrolling in clean circles. Mira looks at the valley scar glowing under sunrise and says, "Verdant hold." Kael does not smile for long. Names travel faster than feet. Smoke can guide the lost, but it can also guide hunters. If 5 abandoned porters found this place, Iron Crown scouts can find it too. And when Varric Dane hears the dead F-rank scholar is alive behind monster-built walls, he will not come to apologize. He will come to take the valley back. By the 37th minute, Kael Voren no longer has a campfire under a rock shelf. He has walls, water trenches, thorn fences, raptor patrols, and embers tone lamps glowing above verdant hold like captured sunset. Wounded beasts work beside humans without chains. The camp ledger reads like a dare: 30 days survived, 4 water lines secured, 6 beasts bonded, and 32 survivors protected. For the first time, the monster kingdom has a real shape. And now the outside world sees its smoke. The warning comes from the sky. Below him, verdant hold looks small, but ordered. Bramblejaw drags timber toward the north wall while children stack vines near the trench. Their breastplates carry the black Iron Crown mark. They do not move like lost survivors. The sound tears through Kael's pack pulse like a hook behind his damaged ear. The guild badge. Kael drops his water gourd. Mira catches his arm before he falls into the trench. His hearing collapses on one side, and the hold turns muffled around him. Guild. Verdant hold reacts at once. Rook gives a low bark. Two younger raptors vanish between the thorn walls. Bramblejaw lowers his horns toward the trail. Kael climbs the half-finished watchtower. Verdant Hold sits inside a crescent of cliffs. A water trench cuts through the center. The beast pen shields the healer tent. Beyond it all, Iron Crown scouts mark the hidden pass back to Varric Dane. Kael understands the danger. Far beyond the ridge, Varric receives the report before sunset. He stands at the old cliff gate with fresh soldiers, chained war beasts, and Kael's father's journal tucked under one arm. Varric studies the sketch of Verdant Hold. His face tightens at the trench, the walls, the beast symbols, and the word raptors beside the camp. He does not ask how Kael survived. The order spreads through the Iron Crown camp. Capture the beasts if possible. Retrieve any journal pages Kael may have copied. Make sure no survivor leaves to tell a different story. Back at Verdant Hold, Mira gives Kael the hard truth. If the guild comes with soldiers, the children cannot climb the cliffs. They can abandon tools, tents, and some food. Kael looks at the hold he built from blood and broken trust. He sees Bramblejaw's thorn fence, Loom's rope bridges, the water trench, the healer tent, and Rook watching the ridge like a blade. By nightfall, Verdant Hold stops looking like a shelter and starts becoming a fortress. Grind opens the first hidden trench outside the east wall. Mira ties bone tags along the inner side so friendly patrols know where to step. The tug will travel into Loom's spines, then into Kael's palm. This is the named unlock, Sky Warning. Rook and the raptors circle below. Bramblejaw blocks the charge lanes. Verdant Hold now has an outer patrol ring, built by beasts the guild would have killed for parts. One Iron Crown scout slips through the fern line with a knife in his teeth and a signal tube at his belt. Rook steps from the dark and places one sickle claw on the fallen blade. Kael arrives with Mira and two lanterns. He does not let the raptors tear the scout apart. He does not torture him for numbers. He cuts the gag loose and lets him breathe. The scout stares at the beasts waiting for Kael's hand, not his whip. Kael gives him water. Then he gives him a message. Tell Varric Dane that Verdant Hold is not abandoned land. Tell him every wall here was raised by someone he left to die. Tell him if Iron Crown enters with chains, the valley will answer as one body. At sunrise, they release the scout. He runs back through the ridge path with mud on his armor, silk burns on his wrists, and fear where arrogance used to be. Above him, Skiv circles once to make sure he does not turn back. The warning reaches Varric before noon. He listens without moving. Then he looks toward the smoke rising from the valley and orders the full march. Kael watches that same smoke from the tower. Trenches and tripwires will slow scouts, not stop an army. But below him, the hold keeps working. Bramblejaw locks fresh logs into the wall. Loom tightens the net canopy. Grind digs deeper. Rook leads the patrol ring. Mira moves the wounded into the inner shelter. The guild has found the smoke. Now the question is no longer whether Kael can survive the verdant scar. It is whether a kingdom built by wounded beasts can survive a trained Iron Crown army. By day 30, Verdant Hold no longer looks like a camp. Thorn walls ring the clearing. Watch platforms rise above smoke kills, water trenches, and embers tone lamps. Rook patrols the gate like a captain. Bramblejaw sleeps against the palisade like a living barricade. Loom's silk lines wait between the towers. Kael Voran built all of it from one fire pit and one dying beast. The Emberwing glider crashes into the watch basket and screams until every beast lifts its head. Through Skiv's panic, Kael feels iron, blood, and rage so old it feels like thunder. Mira Solon limps up beside him with a signal horn and a knife. Then guild horns answer from the ridge. Varric Dane stands above the valley road in polished armor, safe behind soldiers with hooked chains and embers tone prods. He does not send his army first. Chained by old iron harpoons buried beneath its bone crown, the ancient king beast of the verdant scar steps into the clearing. Bone crown. The apex tyrant stands taller than the watchtower. Iron cables drag from its neck, each one tied to a guild winch. Every time Bone Crown slows, soldiers burn the harpoons with embers tone rods. For one heartbeat, verdant hold freezes. Then Kael moves. Bramblejaw rises before the gate. Rook jumps to Kael's side, crystal plates flare. Kael looks at the wall he built. Then he looks at the beast that can break it. He reaches through the pane in the air and grabs for Bone Crown's wound imprint. The word slams into Bone Crown like a thrown chain. Kael's amber scar burns bright. Even Varric's smile slips. The useless F-rank scholar just reached the strongest beast in the valley. Pain crashes back into Kael like a falling cliff. He hears screaming inside his skull, not from the camp, but from Bone Crown's neck, where iron has ground against bone for years. The forced command does not calm the beast. Bone Crown answers with rage. Kael collapses. The ember marks on the bonded beasts flicker. Rook stumbles. Bramblejaw shakes his head. Varric raises his sword on the ridge. The guild soldiers burn the harpoons again. By the end of the charge, the enemy losses will count more broken chains than dead beasts, because Kael is not here to slaughter. He is here to prove Iron Crown's rule is over. Bone Crown charges. The outer wall lasts 3 seconds. Bramblejaw slams into Bone Crown's chest, but the apex beast does not stop. A week of work becomes a broken mouth in the wall. But verdant hold does not vanish. Survivors crawl away instead of being crushed. Progress breaks, but it does not reset. Kael tries to stand. Bone Crown turns toward the inner yard, and fear hardens into another order. Rook, drive it back. Rook does not obey. The glassback raptor looks at the breach, then at Kael's shaking legs. The order is death. Kael is throwing his first friend at a wall of teeth because he is scared to lose the kingdom. Rook bites Kael's coat and drags him off the platform just as Bone Crown's tail smashes through the railing. Wood explodes over them. Rook pulls Kael behind a fallen beam and stands over him, hissing instead of charging. For the first time since the first bond, Kael's beast refuses him. And that refusal saves his life. Mira crawls through smoke and forces Kael to look again. Bone Crown is not eating the fruit. It is not chasing children. It is not hunting the wounded. It keeps smashing anything that looks like a post, a fence, a chain, or a gate. Under the jagged crown, black iron links are buried deep into its flesh. Every prod from the ridge sends heat through those chains. Every wall, command, and restraint tells Bone Crown the same thing. Prison. Kael finally listens between the roars. The pattern is not hunger. It is pain, memory, and rage sharpened by years of being driven like a siege engine. Varric did not lure a monster to attack verdant hold. He tortured a prisoner until it broke whatever stood in front of it. Kael looks at his bleeding palm. He failed because, for one terrified second, he copied the guild. Bone Crown rips the remains of the outer gate from the ground. Behind the inner trench, settlers hold children close. Bramblejaw struggles back up. Rook presses against Kael's side and refuses to leave. On the ridge, Varric laughs and orders the winches forward. Kael wipes blood from his ear and understands the price of the next step. To win Bone Crown, he cannot command it, trap it, or prove he is a better master. He has to walk toward the strongest beast in the valley and stop trying to own it. The broken wall still smokes when Kael Voran steps through the gap alone. Behind him, verdant hold holds its breath. Rook paces at the shattered gate. Bramblejaw lowers his horns but does not charge. Mira Solon grips a spear she can barely lift. Bone Crown stands beyond the splintered palisade like a living siege tower. Every survivor sees the iron harpoons buried in its neck, shoulders, and ribs. Old guild weapons. Kael throws his broken knife into the mud. Mira calls his name, but Kael does not turn back. Bone Crown lowers its skull until one amber eye fills Kael's world. Kael does not command it. He does not use the wound imprint like a leash. It is years of chains, spears, burned nests, stolen young, and hunters laughing behind iron masks. Kael's knees buckle as the first memory hits. He sees Bone Crown younger, trapped in a ravine with chains around its throat. Iron Crown banners hang above the cliff. Kael feels each one tear into his own body. Bone Crown roars. The sound cracks the remaining wall posts. Rook lunges forward, but Mira blocks him with both arms. If they attack now, they prove every wound Bonecrown remembers. Kael crawls to the tyrant's front leg and places his palm on the first harpoon shaft. The iron is thicker than his wrist. Ember's tone barbs pulse under the skin, still poisoning the beast after all these years. Kael whispers one word, not as an order, but as an answer. Kael braces his foot against the stone and pulls again. Bonecrown slams its tail into the ground. At the same time, Kael's shoulder tears open in a matching line. That half-breath saves verdant hold. Kael reaches the second harpoon, lodged where every movement has ground iron into bone. Guild soldiers drag a dead hatchling by a chain. Varric Dane's family crest is stamped into metal crates. An older hunter says valley beasts only understand force. Kael's face hardens. Myra's shout has no sound. Rook's cry has no sound. Bonecrown's open jaws have no sound. Kael only feels the vibration through his ribs as the tyrant nearly snaps from agony. Kael staggers in front of its mouth and spreads his arms, bleeding from wounds that are not fully his. Before, Kael's bonds looked like amber scars. Now the light leaves his palm and forms a thin ring around human and beast. Mornshell hums from the water trench. Halo's crown frill shines inside the healer tent. Every bonded beast feels the ring and goes still, not frozen by control, but waiting for an answer. Kael understands the truth at last. It sits in Bonecrown's throat, the reason its roar always sounded broken. Kael cannot pull it alone. Then Rook steps through the wall gap. The raptor does not attack. He holds Kael upright. Bramblejaw plants his horns beneath the harpoon shaft. Kael gives no command. Kael screams without hearing himself. Bonecrown throws its head to the sky, but the roar that comes out is different. The sound rolls across the verdant scar and sends flocks spiraling from the cliffs. It runs under the broken palisade, under the beast pens, under the tents, under the watchtower, and through the roots of the whole settlement. Mira sees the markings from Kael's father's copied notes match the stones beneath their feet. The ancient pact was real. Words burn across Kael's inner hearing, deeper than sound. Wound imprint fractures. Wound pact awakens. Kael drops to one knee, shaking and almost blind from pain. Bonecrown lowers its massive head over him. Instead, the apex beast kneels. Its skull lowers to the mud until its bone crown rests before Kael like a fortress gate. Bonecrown chooses the pact in front of every survivor, every beast, and every glowing ruined stone. Kael places his bloody palm against the tyrant's snout. Bonecrown turns away from Kael and steps between verdant hold and the open valley. The same beast that crushed their defense now becomes the defense. When distant predators answer from the jungle, Bonecrown lowers his head and growls once. Bramblejaw nudges wall posts back into line. Rook stands beside Kael like a guard captain. Mira catches Kael before he collapses. She looks from the kneeling titan to the glowing ruins and finally understands what Iron Crown never did. With Bonecrown at the breach and the ruin ring burning beneath its foundations, verdant hold looks like the first wall of something older and larger. The beasts are not tools around it. Far beyond the trees, Iron Crown scouts watch the glow rise from the valley floor. They came expecting smoke, corpses, and one dead F-rank scholar. Instead, they see an apex tyrant kneel to Kael Voran. And if the verdant scar has accepted him as pact holder, then Varric Dane has not just lost his bait. He has marched toward a kingdom that can bite back. By the time Iron Crown returns to the verdant scar, the bait they left behind is no longer hiding under a rock shelf. Kael Voran stands above a Real fortress gate. Ember's tone lamps burn along the walls. Skysilk alarm lines stretch between towers. Behind him, a monster army waits in clean formation. Water trenches shine below the palisade. Bramblejaw lowers his three horns beside the main road, and Bonecrown waits in the mist like a walking cliff. Varric Dane arrives with banners, cavalry, chain wagons, and noble witnesses in polished armor. Then part of the wall shifts, because half of it is Bramblejaw's thorn-armored herd, standing shoulder to shoulder with timber lashed across their backs. Mira watches from the signal tower, one hand on a rope line and the other braced against her injured leg. Around her, refugees hold water buckets, spare spears, bandages, and embers tone lamps. Varric rides forward and raises Kael's stolen journal for every noble to see. He calls the beast stolen guild property. Then he orders Kael to surrender the gate, the embers tone route, and every creature inside the walls. Kael does not answer from cover. The main gate swings inward, and Kael steps into the open mud with Rook at his side. The same mud that once swallowed his blood now carries the prints of dozens of bonded beasts. Varric smiles, thinking pride has made Kael stupid. But Kael is not inviting him in. He is showing the witnesses that Verdant Hold is not a cage. No beast stands there because of chains. Varric gives the first command. Kael lifts one hand and gives one word. Bramblejaw moves. They drive their horn plates into Iron Crown shield walls and shove. They have no answer for beasts that move in formation and leave escape gaps for frightened horses. Varric screams for scouts to flank the wall. Rook's pack is already waiting. Rook slams him flat and pins his sleeve until he drops it. Varric's performance rots in front of his witnesses. Then Varric opens the chain wagons. Starved war beasts drag themselves into the light with iron collars around their necks. Kael hears their pain before the whips crack. The old Kael would have collapsed under that much suffering. This Kael locks his knees and looks past the soldiers to the chains. Varric orders the beasts forward. Forced control fails exactly as Kael warned it would. The battlefield becomes a screaming knot of iron, pain, and bad commands. Kael cuts his palm and presses the blood against Rook's ember scar. He does not try to own the chained beasts. He sends one need through the bond to every willing creature inside Verdant Hold. Bone Crown answers. The apex tyrant steps out from behind the mist wall, and the battlefield shrinks around him. Guild soldiers drop their spears. Varric's face loses all color. The last time Bone Crown entered Kael's life, he destroyed the outer camp and left timber scattered like matchsticks. Now the Titan passes Kael without touching him, lowers his bone-crowned skull, and charges the chain wagon. The impact shatters iron. Bone Crown clamps his jaws around the main chain and tears it loose with one brutal twist. The chained beasts stagger free, still wounded and terrified, but no longer dragged by Iron Crown hands. Kael pays for every second. He feels Bramblejaw's bruised shoulder, Rook's cracked claw, Mira gripping the tower rail, the fear of children under the healer tent, and the rage of beasts who remember cages. Varric sees him weaken and lunges for the opening. He grabs a fallen spear and orders every remaining soldier to take Kael alive. If Kael falls, the guild can still call this a monster uprising. Kael raises both hands. The ember scars across Verdant Hold ignite. This is the named unlock his father never lived to see. Kingdom Heart. Humans and willing beasts share one simple command. The water crew opens trench gates, and mud swallows the cavalry road. Loom seals broken wall gaps with thick silk. Bramblejaw's herd forms a living barricade. Rook's raptors circle Varric's officers and strip every drawn blade from their hands. The fortress is no longer just built by monsters. It fights like a monster kingdom. Iron Crown breaks. The nobles see chained beasts freed instead of stolen. They see refugees protected instead of sacrificed. Varric stumbles backward into the mud. Rook cuts off one path. Bramblejaw lowers his horns behind him. Above them all, Bone Crown steps close enough for his shadow to cover Varric's entire body. The Iron Crown heir falls to his knees in the same wet ground where he once left Kael to die. Kael walks toward him, barely standing. Amber light fades as Kingdom Heart releases. Mira calls his name from the gate. Rook presses against his leg to keep him upright. Kael looks down at Varric, at the stolen journal hanging from his belt, and at the noble witnesses frozen behind the ruined army. Varric expects execution. Kael takes back his father's journal. He leaves Varric alive, muddy, disarmed, and surrounded by witnesses who now know exactly what happened in the Verdant Scar. Iron Crown did not lose to a monster attack. It lost to the man it threw away, the beasts it tortured, and the kingdom they built from zero. And as Varric is forced to walk out under every noble's stare, the question hanging over the valley is no longer whether Kael can survive. It is what a monster king does with the enemy who try to erase him. Varric Dane drops to his knees in the mud, surrounded by the kingdom he failed to destroy. Behind Kael Voran, the rebuilt wall of Verdant Hold stands higher than any guild barricade. Rook watches from the gate beam. Bramblejaw lowers his 3 horns like a living siege tower. Beyond them, Bonecrown waits in silence, free of the broken iron harpoons that once pierced his neck. The Iron Crown soldiers surrender first. The war beasts they dragged into the valley refuse to take another step. Kael does not control them with fear. He lets them see clean water, fresh meat, and wounded creatures resting safely behind the palisade. Varric expects death. Kael only steps close and pulls his father's field journal from Varric's coat. Then Kael gives Varric a worse punishment. He tells Varric to walk out alive and tell every noble house what he saw. The weak F-rank scholar survived the verdant scar. The monsters built walls for him. The valley chose a pact, not a chain. Varric's face breaks, because his survival now carries Kael's victory farther than any blade could. The soldiers march out without their captured beasts. Mira Solon watches from the platform, leaning on her repaired brace while Skiv circles above with a stolen guild buckle in his claws. She records every surrendered weapon, every released beast, and every witness who saw Iron Crown lose. The guild came for Ember's Tone, Skysilk, and the Hidden Pass. When the last guild torch disappears along the cliff road, Verdant Hold does not cheer. The survivors stare at the broken palisade, the burned grain racks, and the claw marks carved deep across the gate. Children carry water to Halo's healer tent. Grind shoves stone into the breach, and Bramblejaw packs it down with slow, stubborn force. A border kingdom. Raptor patrols move along marked paths, and human guards walk beside them without chains. Mira climbs onto a flat block of meteor stone and opens a fresh ledger. Her voice stays steady as she records the first law of Verdant Hold. No beast is owned. No guild chain crosses the gate. The words are simple, but they land harder than a crown being forged. In the center, a human handprint sits beside a beast claw mark. Rook snaps at the wind as the cloth climbs. Mornshell rests near the water trench, blue shell shining in morning light. For the first time, the Verdant Scar has a flag. Kael does not stand on a throne. He stands at the gate, still pale from Kingdom Heart, one hand over his chest. Before noon, the survivors vote. Kael tells them the gate will not lock behind anyone. Then Mira asks who wants to remain and build. Even 2 former guild soldiers raise their hands after dropping their chain keys in the dirt. By evening, Verdant Hold receives its full name. Rook watches from the wall like he approves the spelling. Skiv drops the stolen guild buckle into the wet paint, and Mira leaves it there as a warning. Iron Crown metal now marks the first monster kingdom. That night, when the settlement sleeps, Kael carries his father's journal to the ruin altar beneath the old packed stones. Water drips through roots in the quiet chamber. Kael places the journal on the altar. Humans and beasts can stand together. Across the valley, beasts lift their heads at the same time. Bonecrown lowers himself to the ground. Even Kael's bonds go silent, as if every creature is listening to a heartbeat under the world. The sealed crater gate opens. Far beneath Verdant Hold, a massive eye appears between living roots and buried stone. It is green, ancient, and wounded. The forest itself seems wrapped around its ribs. Oathroot, the elder grove titan, wakes under the valley. Kael stares into that eye and understands the truth. The Verdant Scar was not the monster graveyard. It was only the first wound. And under the continent, something older has been waiting for someone who knows how to listen.